Good morning, November 25th, 2015, also known as Thanksgiving Eve to many of you traveling out there. This is the Thomas Loop Radio Show on AM 1440 WJJL. I'm host Tom Proctor. Got an interview with a legendary writer, columnist, sports writer, author, Pulitzer Prize winner. We have him on line one. We'll be speaking with him momentarily. But to give him his background, he's a writer for the New York Times for 26 years. Pulitzer Prize for National Reporting in 2001, was a finalist in 1998 for commentary for the Pulitzer Prize. Started off in the Minnesota Tribune, I believe in 1967, historically, when I read the beginning of the book. The book is entitled Giants Among Men. You could get it on triumphbooks.com directly. The author is on line one. I want to thank him for his time. Ladies and gentlemen, Ira Berkow, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Tom.
Like I said off the air, I skimmed through the book. I gave it several reads already, and I like the connections it has, not only to the New York Giants football team, but other players as well. For example, Doug Flutie, Troy Aikman, Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, you cover pretty much 5+ decades of New York Giants football, 40 years?
Yeah, 5+ of me covering football primarily, and around the Giants too. But the book was it's based on Giants football,
right.
But I go beyond that, including, of course, Scott Norwood.
Yes, I did come across that this morning, by the way.
Bob Levy, yeah, right, yeah.
January 22nd, 1992 is where you versed it, and you did mention Buffalo News' own Vic Carucci in that particular story.
Oh, yeah, he's good.
Your thoughts, I mean, was this over time that you wanted to produce such a book, a historical perspective of what you've done over the years and what the Giants have done and whatever has been associated, branching out from the New York Giants?
Yeah, when I was doing the reporting, I was doing the columns over 40+ years. I did not think of putting them together into a book. It's only when I retired from the New York Times in 2007, and although I didn't retire from writing, but I just retired from daily newspapering.
Right.
And then I thought about all the columns I had done, all the feature stories I had done on football, and they're primarily of human interest. It wasn't so much who won or lost the game, although it was significant in a person's life that I was writing about who won or lost, but what it meant to them, and then beyond beyond even football, and so I was talking with Triumph Books, the publisher, Mitch Rogat's terrific guy, and in my view, a very bright editor.
Okay.
And he thought it would make a really good book, so we put it together. Yeah.
His name is Ira Berkow. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner in 2001. Outstanding writer, formerly the New York Times, where he has been for 26 years. The book's entitled Giants Among Men. You can check it out on triumphbooks.com. The subtitle reads Y.A.L.T. Big Tuna and Other New York Giants Stories, obviously referring to Y.A. Attila, Lawrence Taylor, Bill Parcells. Let's go to personalities of the particular New York Giants part of the book. Which one of them was the most polarizing over your coverage of 40 years of the New York Giants?
Well, polarizing, I guess you'd have to say Lawrence Taylor. He seemed, polarizing outside of the locker room. That his teammates liked him, but he admitted to drug use. He was found to be having sex with an underage female. So I guess that would be polarizing. Polarizing for opponents, of course, was Fran Tarkenton, who scrambled around all over the field, and the opposition had a hard time finding him. And my guess is that if a lineman wanted to lose weight, then he wanted to play against Fran Tarkenton because he chased him all over the field.
get the metabolism going. His name is Ira Berkow. He's on
one
here.
One of the great scramblers, yeah.
Yes, and I have not lived. I'm 40, so it was a little bit before my time. But I've seen many of the highlight of Fran Tarkenton, Frantic Fran.
Yeah, Frantic Fran. He's all over YouTube. You can get him on YouTube.
That's correct.
And it's hard to believe what you're seeing. But when you were there watching him from the press box, I mean, sometimes you would just break out in laughter. And then they couldn't catch him, and he could run from this side of the field to that side, up and back, and then he'd throw a pass, and he'd hit a guy in the end zone, touchdown. It was really remarkable. There's nobody, I don't remember ever seeing anybody quite like him. There were scramblers, and there are now. I guess Russell Wilson is, Cam Newton, and the Redskins quarterback, the third.
RG3, Robert Griffin.
Yeah, who's been hurt. But nobody quite like Fran Tarkenton.
It's the originator. And as I've done a little bit of homework, and you mentioned YouTube, regarding yourself, if we can slightly sidetrack, but yet talk about the beginning of what you eventually went on to, which was the Minnesota Tribune and then the New York Giants. You had once mentioned you had to make up the rest of your life reading vocabulary. There was a certain book you had that your father had lent you that you set aside. Could you go in further more about that?
Well, when I was in high school, Sullivan High School in Chicago, North Side of Chicago in the city, and I was on the baseball and basketball teams. Baseball for 4 years, basketball for 3 years, and while I was a good student in the grade school, I just stopped reading books and just concentrated on sports. The whole thing was to stay eligible, and so I did the limited amount of work, and then in my senior year in basketball, I tore ligaments in my ankle, and I was on crutches, and I was home, and my dad said, you don't read, you read the paper just for the sports pages, but you have to, read more and develop a vocabulary, because words are power, he said to me. And so he gave me a book, 30 Days to a Powerful, 30 Days to a More Powerful Vocabulary.
Yeah.
And then I put it aside, of course, being a 17-year-old wise guy. And then I picked it up. And once a day for 30 days, they have a chapter about vocabulary and developing words. And I remember loquacious was one of the words.
Right.
And I just fell in love with words. It was like Alice falling into the rabbit hole, into Wonderland. And I remember I came back to high school, and I suddenly had the biggest vocabulary of anybody in my high school. Nobody probably had more than 25 or 30 words in their vocabulary. So now I had 40, and that led me on to reading, and the more I read, the more words I didn't know, and I started learning more words, and then I went to college and majored in English at Miami of Ohio, and then I was writing on the school newspaper at Miami, and I thought this would be a lot of fun. I was a sports columnist, and so I applied to Northwestern Medill School of Journalism.
Oh, good.
They admitted me, and from there I went to the Minneapolis Tribune. I wrote away to 25 newspapers after graduating Northwestern. And people wrote back. We'd like your resume. But I remember one said, "We like your resume, and if you're in the neighborhood, drop by." Now I'm in Chicago, and this was someone in Los Angeles writing Los Angeles Times.
Yeah.
But anyway, I eventually got a call from the Minneapolis Tribune, and started in sports from there, and then went to Newspaper Enterprise Association in New York for almost 10 years, and then the New York Times. So that was my history, and I still read. I still look up words, there's a word, vouchsafe. I must have looked this word up 100 times, and I remember just yesterday looking it up again. It means giving. To vouchsafe,
right.
And so anyway, I'm still in the process of educating myself.
It's a never-ending process, is what you're saying.
Never-ending process.
His name is Ira Berkow. The book is entitled Giants Among Men, subtitle YALT, Big Tuna and Other New York Giants Stories. It's on TriumphBooks.com. Anything toward the future for your book? If you have anything lined up?
Not for the book, but I have written a play with Bill Madden, who was the baseball columnist for the New York Daily News. After some 40 years, and we wrote a play called Steinbrenner.
Nice.
And it will. We've had successful readings. Richard Kind, a great actor, who read Steinbrenner, and it's going to have an off-Broadway run in March it looks like in Clearwater, Florida, at the Ruth Eckerd Hall, and that's for 2 weeks. And then, if all goes well, according to the producer, who's optioned it, he plans to take it to Broadway at some point after Florida. So we've been working on that, and the only football connection with Steinbrenner is that he was an assistant football coach at Northwestern.
Oh, wow.
And he used to like to brag, that he was a jock. And it turned out that the 1 year that he was an assistant football coach at Northwestern, they were winless. They tied once.
Right.
They were 0-9-1. So much for George's jockstrap. But that's what I've been doing, and among other things. But that was it's a major thing in my life right now, and it looks like it might have legs. I don't want to jinx it or jinx myself, but but we've worked on it for over 4.5 years.
His name is Ira Berkow. The book's entitled Giants Among Men, YALT, Big Tuna and Other New York Giants Stories. I want to thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, Tom. I enjoyed talking to you.
Anytime.
Right.
All the best to you. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
You too.
All right, take care. Ira Berkow, formerly of the New York Times, here in the Thomas Loop Radio Show on AM 1440.